Further ado, I will start with the official welcome.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're dialing in from. Welcome to Recognition Week, September 2025. Our theme this time around is Moments That Matter because recognition helps us celebrate every moment and remind people that they truly matter. You're in for such an incredible treat. Our speaker lineup this time around is filled with leaders who live and breathe recognition, and they've all got such inspiring stories to share. Before we get into Sarah's presentation, we are running a little daily giveaway. I've entered all of you lovely registrants into the draw for our limited edition bucket list pickleball set. We know
Oh
it's
my gosh, that's so much fun.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it's taken off this sport. And so we thought, people might like some paddles. And so the winner for day one is Ben Stelly. Congrats, Ben. If you're in the chat right now, please give us a little shout. But no worries if not, I will send you an email after the event.
Mhm.
All right, I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to our incredible event partners. Without your support, we could not put this event together. So thank you all. And above all, I just really appreciate how passionate you all are about elevating people and building great culture. So very, very grateful to partner with you all. All right, a couple of quick housekeeping items before we go into things. First is that we're hosting this event on a Zoom events platform, so make sure to keep your lobby link on hand so you can flip between the sessions super easily. Chat box feature is open. Make sure your blue drop down is set to everyone so that it's not just me and Sarah seeing all your amazing comments. Q&A box is open. We will be asking polls throughout today. Professional development credits will be given at the end of each session. We have the HRCI, SHRM, and the CPD ones this time around. Last but not least, everything's being recorded and we'll be putting everything onto a fun little resource hub and we'll send it out sometime next week when that's all done. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Sarah McVannell, our keynote speaker. Sarah, you are a recognition expert, coach, author, and all around powerhouse when it comes to helping organizations unlock their full potential when it comes to recognition. She created Frog. I'm sure, Sarah, you'll speak more about this, but it stands for Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And yes, you do have frogs as well to represent that. With over 25 years of experience leading teams and coaching professionals, she's definitely mastered the art of recognition. I'm so excited for all the stories and tidbits you'll share with us today. All right, Sarah, I will pass it over to you to get things started.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am so excited to be here with you because I get a chance to share with you some really fun, scrumptious things that we've been up to. I think we can all agree that day to day, it doesn't always feel very scrumptious in our world. Can we say yes or no? Do you sometimes feel like we have a bit of a crisis of lack of kindness, that people are stressed, that they're wearing their intensity on their shoulders? Yeah, exactly. So we get a chance to, over the next hour, be in community, focus on the power of gratitude, kindness, appreciation, recognition, compassion. What do you think? Are you game? Thumbs up if you are game. Because really, even every time we open up, it seems like a LinkedIn article. We attend a conference. We're hearing about change, disruption, AI. And yes, we all agree we need to be change agents. We are often the ones depended on in our organizations to be able to positively lead change, to be able to support people who are maybe feeling insecure about, will I actually have a job next year or not? That's it's a call to serve. And I think we can all feel like we're grateful. Would you say you're grateful for the privilege of people trusting you, that you can help safeguard people, make them feel like they can do this, help with policy redevelopment, reorient our work? Yeah, absolutely grateful, Ashton. So, that said, I think we're also extremely tuned in to the fact that it's overwhelming for people. And so, our time together is exploring and sharing with you a bit of a social experiment that our family and I did this year. And it's built on 25 years of experience of doing, really, if I were to epitomize the essence of it, social experiments in recognition. Are you curious? Type if you're curious about doing social experiments. I don't work in a university, so I don't need ethics approval to do social experiments. They're experiments for good. I love social experiments. Okay, see, we're with each other's people. Because really, in times of chaos, let's face it, many days feel chaotic. Sometimes it's all the time feels chaotic. This is where the greatest opportunity exists. A psychology major, Maria. I love that. Yes, we love experiments. So here's the thing. We get a chance to have a full, big, old permission slip to leverage recognition, to find every opportunity to be able to make chaos feel less threatening. Let's use the sense that people are unsure, that they're feeling worried, that they're feeling stressed, and bring back what we all know to be true. And that is that recognition is a stabilizing force that builds bridges of connection, that builds emotional stability, that builds also emotional literacy in how we're dealing with things. And we also get a chance to maybe move the needle on some of the unrivaled cultural resilience that we know can happen if we anchor what we do on a foundation of recognition. So here's what we decided to do. We decided to test, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this. Do you agree or disagree that recognition is a global language? That no matter what your actual language is, whether you use verbal language or other languages, that yeah, you see, we all agree. So we call this the thankful movement. So we decided to start this testing of the global language in Europe this summer. My daughter, my husband, and I went mainly to the Netherlands, but also to Belgium and Germany. And we thought, could we create recognition moments that matters with strangers? And not knowing, again, social experiment, how this was going to go. Now, for anyone who's a little nervous, wait a minute, do we have the right to go and explore and experiment with other people? I kind of figure this way. If we, it works. Exactly, Judith. Yes. If only 30% of people are truly engaged at work and 70% are anywhere from apathetic to actively disengaged. And we all know that connection, the bridge from that 70% to the 30% is recognition. And many of your other speakers are going to dive into this even more. I think there's really, we don't have a big risk. Like, what if the worst that happens is people aren't more engaged? I mean, that's not really a big threat, right? If only 30% of truly engaged. But what if strangers could help to build engagement and meaningful connection? And when I worked in organizational development, we found time and time again. Tell me if say me in the chat if you have had the privilege of helping teams, whether they were thriving teams, teams who are barely surviving, teams in crisis, if you have had currently or in the past part of your portfolio has been working with teams, type me in the chat. What we found, what I initially as an internal consultant and then my teams that I had the privilege of managing, we always found that, and I'm sure those of you who said me, you'll have found this as well, that everything we would do to help to try to revitalize those teams, if it did not have a foundation of recognition, everything else we would do as soon as we would leave would fall apart. However, the teams where recognition became the anchor of that intervention, we could scaffold on other opportunities. So we had this experience over years, and there wasn't a single team that was not better in the moment and after we had left that had recognition as a core cultural anchor. So we thought we should probably see, does the data substantiate that? And here's what we did. We went to a Canadian Metrics at Work. It's a Canadian organization. And it was part of writing some books that we did on forever recognize others' greatness. And what we found is that, and some of you who have been to sessions that I've had the privilege of doing for Bucket List, you may have seen this slide already. I think it's worth repeating because anyone who challenges you, or sometimes if you're even thinking, can it really be that easy? Here's the data. The orange bars represents what it looks like with the least satisfied teams with recognition. Intention to stay. Look at how low intention to stay is, the orange bar. The satisfaction with leaders, trust in the organization, continuous improvement. Oh, sorry if the slide's blurry. Let's see, is that better? Sorry, everybody. So what we found is that when we layer on recognition, still blurry. Okay, let's see. Tell you what, I'm going to make sure you can all have the slides afterwards. I will do a really good job of vocalizing what's in the slides. Sorry about that. So when we have intention to stay, satisfaction with leaders, trust the organization, innovation, it's in the 70 to over 80% engagement range. And so we know that it is improved. It is better when we have recognition as our core foundation. And what we found by working with some of those teams and is that if we encapsulated it into a model, then we might have a better chance of being able to build consistent structure in these interventions. And we actually call that's the frog that Rebecca was talking about, forever recognize others' greatness. So here's the process. And again, I'm sorry if for whatever reason it's blurry today, but I will get you these slides. It starts with intention. If that's the forever part, we have to look with intention. And then we observe it. When we observe it, we can acknowledge that greatness. It allows us to reflect on what's working, learn from it, and fuel into our intention. So let me share with you some examples or stories that happened as a result of doing that intentionally. What do you think? Yes? Game? Okay, let's jump in. So, intention. What we focus on grows. In our organizations, in our world, in our families, the things that we focus on, we notice more of. When we focus on greatness, we see more greatness. Instead, if we focus on differences, fear, drama, that's what grows, right? We want to water what works. We want to water greatness. And yet only 30% of people and yet 30% of people feel invisible at work. Their greatness has not been watered. How can we water it? Well, we decided to see if we could water strangers' greatness out of the blue. So we gave ourselves a challenge. And actually, Rebecca is going to share this in the chat, this video. If you want to go and see it, you want to share it, you want to look at it later, she's going to share it in the chat. Let me share it with you now. So here's how it went. I have these compliment cards. We asked people from all across North America, what's the best compliment you could ever receive? We have now 52 compliments. We put 200 of them in our pocket and we went out to into the city of Maastricht. We got permission from the city and permission anytime we went into businesses. And we saw how many compliments could we give out in an hour. Would you like to see the reactions? I hope you can see this. I hope it's visible. Okay, let's see. What did people say? Did they like it? Could we build connection with strangers? Let's check it out.
We have 1 hour to give out 200 compliments. Can we do this?
Absolutely.
Woo! Let's go.
Zij komen het brengen en met de muziek doen. Dan geef het maar door. Precies. Hey.
Compliments from Canada.
Oh,
You're clearly creative and practical. It's a compliment that you epitomize. And you can give it to each other too. Yes, give them out to all of your friends. You are very positive.
Of course, we have to every day try to make somebody happy, to do something good,
Mhm.
and you will deserve it back.
Yes, yes, yes. We have 1 hour to
I
give out
have to
200
say,
compliments.
it was a beautiful opportunity to practice and experiment with the idea that what if you didn't need a reason? What if your only desire was to show up and add a little bit of curiosity through the art of kindness? So recognition doesn't need a reason. It creates one. I'm wondering, I don't know the answer to this. However, I am very curious how many acts of recognition were spurred from that. And because when we have the intention to recognize, we begin to observe and notice it everywhere. Recognition, though, starts with a choice, and it means that we have to slow down long enough to be able to see it. Does anyone here type fast in the chat if you feel like our world is so fast, our work is so full, our lives are so busy. It's really challenging to see the greatness all around us. Yeah, so many of us. Fast. Even I love that. Caps. That's how fast it is. So one of the ingredients that seems so simple, and yet we all know practically it is challenging to implement, is to slow down long enough to actually observe the greatness all around us. And it's no wonder only about 23% of people feel truly meaningfully recognized at work. So, what would happen if we slow down long enough? Well, we had dinner, we had a lovely lunch at a place called Brownies and Downies. It's actually turns out it's a franchise across the Netherlands, but we had never heard it, but we had the best lunch there. And when we looked at the menu, every other page had a story on it. And I love stories. Do you love stories? I love stories. So we digested these stories and we noticed a pattern very quickly. Many, if not all of the individuals had a visible different ability. Sometimes people say disability, neurodivergence. We like to call it a different ability. And I was so inspired by that. I've had the privilege in my career of working with many not-for-profits and in my work in hospitals, many individuals with different abilities. And they shared their stories, their passions, their interests. In fact, when we walked to the bathroom, all across one huge wall were these beautiful images, this gorgeous high quality photography. It wasn't the employee appreciation photos, the ones that look like mugshots that are on the walls. It wasn't like that. These were high quality sepia images of the people, the staff that work there. And you could see the sense of pride that the whoever arranged that photography, the owner, the manager, whoever that was, you could see how proud they were of showcasing and highlighting the various people who work there. So we decided we wanted to find out who's behind this. So we met the co-owners. Of course, you got to love this. Brothers in arms here. Brothers actually in love. Dom and Justin. I asked them, so tell me about this organization that you have clearly feel the privilege of running. And what they shared is that the people in their team are what motivates them every single day. They're the people that make an employee experience for each other better. They're the ones who deliver the amazing service. They're the ones who inspire new menu items and options. And as I'm listening to them, I'm noticing a few of our compliments that we can pull out. And so I asked them once they shared the story of their origin and why they love what they do, who is the greatness? Who's the person that epitomizes, for example, this one? I admire how you handle daily stress and challenges. And they said, oh, that's easy. And they started giving them out to the members of their teams. And the smiles that you should see. In fact, one of the gentlemen, his name is Boy. It's an individual who he has Down syndrome. He married his bride who also has Down syndrome. They got married down the street in a church built in the 1700s, came back and had the wedding reception in this beautiful building. And I asked him, what do you love about what you do here? And he said, because my family hosted my wedding. Yes. The co-owners and all the staff organized their wedding. I mean, come on. If this isn't the sign of a beautiful culture, full of appreciation, recognition, kindness, and compassion, I don't know what is. See, the power of observing is that we notice all around us in our busy, chaotic world, where we shop, where we eat in restaurants, where we receive care, where our kids go to school. There's kindness and greatness everywhere. So we need to slow down long enough to see it. And what I learned from, and what I had the privilege of observing firsthand is that Recognition is noticing the ordinary moments with extraordinary attention. We get a privilege today. Who is somebody that you would like to give extraordinary attention for them to see what they do as not ordinary? Type in their initials in the chat. Who is somebody that probably feels like their greatness is like, well, of course, I'm just doing my job. Or, of course, I'm teaching your kids, but I've been doing this for years. Yeah, so I love that you already have that person. That is my challenge to you is to recognize that person to help them see that what they do is extraordinary to you. And why is this so important? I mean, we all know why this is so important because we need to acknowledge that greatness for ourselves and others to remember it. Because the reality is, 40% of employees feel stress on a daily basis. I know we've all been there too. But have you found, yes or no, that when somebody you just have that pattern interrupt in your stressful, busy day and they acknowledge something that's working? Maybe you've been beating yourself up, criticizing, feeling like you're not good enough, you're not, you're not achieving enough. Do you stop and pause and actually you're able to maybe notice something that you're doing well? It's a pause in the stress and you're able to see what is working. Um, so, so one of the things that I think we get a chance to do is when we acknowledge those people, we realize that recognition has the power to heal and to help, that we don't necessarily even to know why it's needed, but we get a chance to give it anyway. One of the individuals that I met on our travels was a gentleman named Peter. He worked in a long-term care home, and the amazing thing about Peter is that he's one of those unsung heroes. Who are the people when you think about organizations, whether it's care organizations, essential services organizations, who are some of the essential services unsung heroes that exist in those organizations? Let's think about some of those roles. Is it customer service? Is it IT? Yeah, nurses, absolutely. Let's curate this beautiful list of all of our unsung heroes and just maybe do a shout out to them, honor them in this moment. He worked in maintenance, and we know a caring organization can exist, nor can it be safe if it's not buoyed by a really passionate, dedicated group of maintenance professionals behind it. Absolutely. Customer service, cleaning crew, teachers, school custodians, housekeeping, healthcare workers, truck drivers, human resources, for sure, our fellow human resources. And just like all of these folks, they're often doing this incredible work every day, and we don't pause and for them to notice and us to acknowledge sometimes about how their greatness and how much it's contributing to the bigger picture and to the bigger whole. So when I met Peter and we invited him to take some compliments for his colleagues, he asked, would it be okay if I took a compliment for myself? And we said, yes, Peter, please do. That would be amazing. What compliment would you like to give yourself? And he said, that I'm caring and compassionate. And he got a tear in his eye. And I said, how lucky this long-term care home is to have somebody who works in maintenance to be so caring and compassionate. And he said, no. I'm not doing it for that. I said, no. You need to acknowledge and honor that in yourself, because you may not realize how much you show up with that every day, but other people, I am sure, notice it. Fast forward the next morning, and we are at a hospital now. So we've been giving compliments for 3 whole days. We've been bringing compliments from Canadian healthcare providers to Dutch healthcare providers and long-term care, hospice, and hospitals and community healthcare, home care organizations. And when we went to a hospital the next morning, halfway through our visit, a lady came up to me and she said, I'm from Human Resources. I wanted to talk to you. You met my brother yesterday. I said, oh, who's your brother? Peter. Do you know Peter got us on a FaceTime, all of us in our family WhatsApp chat, and we had to get on the video call at exactly 6 o'clock at night. I was trying to get my kids off to school or off to their after school sports, but he insisted that we all get on at exactly 6 o'clock, and we had to compliment each other. We had to share one thing that we admired about each other, and it created a compliment cascade. Do you know they talked as a family for an hour and a half? I said, it sounds like you really respect how caring and compassionate your brother is. And she said, yeah, I think we've probably been hard on him in our family because Peter maybe is a little bit too sensitive. And I said, wow, how lucky you are to have such a caring, compassionate, and sensitive brother. So lo and behold, the only place we returned to of all of those locations was this particular long-term care home. And who was waiting for us? Peter. And I said, Peter, I met your sister today. And she said, what a caring, compassionate person you are. Tears sprung to his eyes. And he said, really? My sister feels that way about me? Yes, your sister sees that about you. See, sometimes we can be strangers to ourselves. We can be strangers to the people that we know best because we may not take a pause to reflect and to share the greatness that we acknowledge in each other. I will never forget Peter. You probably won't ever forget Peter. But you know what? I wonder what would happen if we took a pause like that at our next family event, whether it be the dinner table, if you celebrate Christmas, if you're getting together for Thanksgiving, and you did a bit of a compliment cascade with each other. What might we be able to notice in each other? What might we be able to celebrate in each other? And how might some of our family members who maybe can't see their own greatness in that moment, we're able to hold the faith for them in their busy, chaotic, stressed out life? Every unspoken compliment is a story untold. So let's share stories of our own as well as others' greatness regularly. And when we do that, we get a chance to reflect on what matters most to ourselves and to others. So recognition can remind people of why they matter. It's an ability and it's a gift to be able to honor the person and not just simply honoring performance, because that's the dangerous part of recognition when we only honor performance. Now, the benefit of recognition on performance is that people are 2.6 times more productive when they are recognized. They're 9 times more likely to recognize their company. They're 6 times more likely to see a long-term career in their team and organization when they are recognized. When I shared with you that part of this 3 days of intensive sharing and curating stories was sparked by a desire to help. 5 years ago, we were in the midst of COVID, gripped by it, and we were thanking. Remember those signs on the lawn? Remember, if you remember, all those signs on our lawns and our communities that said, thank you, healthcare. Thank you, essential services. And now, are any of the signs there now? They're not, right? We've kind of gone back to business as usual. So we decided to start honoring and acknowledging greatness in our healthcare providers every time we noticed them, we saw them. I donate blood and plasma. I have a number of friends, sadly, who are going through cancer. I have somebody who is waiting for a kidney transplant. So every week, and as long as I'm here, I donate plasma in their honor. So I have a chance to get to know all of the incredible staff who work in our local plasma center. And this is Lisa. Lisa can find a vein better than anybody you've ever met. Phew. And I asked Lisa one day, if you could give a compliment to other healthcare providers, what would it be? Are you curious which compliment that she feels is the most important compliment she wants other healthcare providers to see? I love, Chris, that your wife is a nurse. Oh, yeah, it's true. The saint to the devil in the public's eyes. Okay. In Chris's wife's honor, Chris, will you share the name of your wife? Let's do this for Chris's wife. The next time we meet somebody in healthcare or in the healthcare family, right? The support services that surround healthcare. Can we please take a pause and extra carefully make sure that they feel acknowledged? Okay, so we're going to dedicate this to your wife, Chris. Anna Maria, we appreciate you. Oh my gosh, Hamilton? I used to work in hospitals in Hamilton. Chris, you gotta tell me even privately in the chat which hospital. So this one is for your wife, Chris, and all of us who are married, live with, work with people in healthcare. This is from Lisa, and this is from all of us. Please be as kind to yourself as you are to the people that you care for. And we gave this. This was the of 25 compliments of all the healthcare compliments that providers gave and they wanted us to bring over to Europe. That was the only one that everyone took. We brought 50 of each of those compliments, 50 copies of each of those compliments, the only one that we ran out of. I hope you screen capture this loveliness for your wife, Chris, because you'll see, she'll feel all the love here. Whether they were hospital staff, they were support staff, they were in the hospital long-term care, home care, hospice care, every one of them remembered. They had to remember themselves, that they had to do for themselves what sometimes they don't have done for them. Recognition truly is that universal language. So let's speak it fluently. And that brings us to the opportunity to learn. We learned a lot in COVID, didn't we, about how the only way we were going to get through the biggest global healthcare crisis of our lifetime is if Chris's wife and all of the other people on the front line of this pandemic knew that we were behind them. Same with why we started to have an outpouring of appreciation for essential services, whether they were grocery store clerks, truck drivers, delivery professionals, our teachers who had shifted to online, and all of you. Who are the people in your world, in your organization that had to pivot so quickly to be able to navigate this time, to be able to keep business as usual? See, those are the people that we learn so much about how important it is to honor and acknowledge those people. So what happens now, because we had the Great Resignation before, now we're in the frozen job market. The challenge with our frozen job market is that we often feel like we take the foot off the gas of retention, don't we? However, when recognition is still not the language of conversation in our organizations and in our teams, productivity fails, innovation declines, living standards can stagnate, inequality rises, and social mobility craters. This is the danger of the time we're in right now. On the surface, it seems like we're out of the woodwork when it comes to the Great Resignation. But in a frozen job market, it brings other problems. This is where people being on the job retired not only can be detrimental to our productivity in organizations, it can be detrimental to our sense of meaning as well, because we may stay in roles, or people may stay in roles longer because they don't have other options. We can leverage recognition to grease the wheels of meaning and connection and resiliency and resolve. Because as we all know, no one ever left a job because they were too valued. Where people were appreciation. That's it. I gotta leave. I can't get any work done around here. Everybody's acknowledging me too much. No, actually, recognition is our retention superpower. Now, what we know is that we can learn a lot from stay interviews. In fact, if you go to my website, greatnessmagnified.com, under cool stuff, you'll be able to see 25 different stay interview questions. In fact, I will share, when I share this deck with Rebecca to send out to all of you or make available in her resource library, I'll also make sure that I share with you how you can access that. The power of asking through stay interviews, and I apologize, this screen, I have no idea why. When we check about what we're curious why people stay, then we learn what people value, and then we find out how we can retain them. We have an interactive tool that we have available, and you might be able to scan it here. Well, I think maybe you might have a link to it, Rebecca, that we can pop in the chat. Because above the waterline, what we think are some of the assumptions that we have in organizations, why there may be a disengagement issue. It might be because we think people might be negative or they're entitled. But actually, it can be things like low clarity, low psychological safety, not having opportunities for growth. I'm sure many of the people in this series will talk about in your 2 days, they'll dig into some of these components. What we know is that compliments, they may seem like we don't want to just recognize effort. We want to affirm identity in people. So rather than just focusing on the surface things that we see, everybody here is complaining. A complaint's a poorly worded request. It might be a way of somebody saying, I need you to see me. I need you to value me. I need you to hear me. Because really often what's behind the complaint is actually engagement. People don't, I'm not talking about cynics. I'm not talking about the people that no matter what you do, you'll never be able to make them happy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who legitimately have a suggestion, who need to feel heard, that are concerned about quality or customer service or retention. So the complaint may seem like it's negative. Why do they keep saying that? But actually, what they're offering is their lens on how to stay engaged. Compliments cannot just recognize the outcomes, they need to recognize effort. And we need to believe positive intent behind that because they affirm identity. My friends, I will invite you to share some of your questions. We're going to turn it over so that we can have lots of questions here as well. Because what I'm wondering is how do you need to bring recognition more intentionally into your organization, into your community space, into your home base? How can you converse in the language of compliments? We often think compliments are a nice to have, are fluffy. However, as hopefully you've seen and experienced in our conversation, and also how we will continue to experience through the other experts that you will be spending time with today and tomorrow, it's our way, such as in the next session, to battle things like burnout. You'll hear from leaders about how it makes a more coach-like organization at the end of our day today. You're going to be hearing and experiencing how we need to be doubling down on recognition to build cultures of engagement. And so how can something that seems so small as a compliment have such a transformational impact on somebody in the moment, such as Peter, and the relationships that he builds and curates from that? How can it help people to see who they are, their identity is exactly what the world needs, their team, their family, their friends, this world? And that's the art of frogging, my friends. Forever recognize others' greatness. What I'd love to do is to invite us to think about how, when we close the recognition divide, we have fulfillment through being, people are 4 times more engaged. They're half as likely to leave their work. They're 44% more likely to be thriving overall, whereas when they're not fulfilled with recognition, they're 8 times more likely to be actively disengaged. They're 4 times more likely to be actively looking for work. They're 62% more likely to be struggling overall. So how can we support you to cross the recognition divide? What questions do you have that maybe Rebecca and I can turn things over to invite you to share some of those questions? And by the way, as always, consider me your recognition phone a friend. How can I be a resource to you going forward in the future as well? Please connect with me on LinkedIn so that we can support each other in community. Rebecca, can we open the floor to questions and curiosity to help us explore how we can maybe turn strangers into stories that help to knit together communities of connection? What do you think?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that awesome way to kick off this conference around recognition and just really sharing all the tidbits and stories about why it matters so much. I know people are putting in their questions. We've received
Okay.
a few already. I'll let them trickle in. We have a really good amount of time for Q&A, so I'm sure folks are just still typing in their questions.
Yeah.
In the meantime, perhaps we can flip over and we can share a bit more first about the work that you're doing. And I'll just share my screen again. I have it's not blurry on my end, so I can share your
Yeah.
QR code. There you go. Would you like to share a bit more about the work that you're doing and if folks want to, go around your website and look for things, other services? Yeah, go for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, one of the things that we talked about in the last bucket list event, and those of you who are here, thank you so much for coming. We're reimagining the employee experience. There's 10 phases of the employee experience. It starts well before we ever have a job posting, and the end of the employee experience is not retire. It's about transforming. It's about that next evolution. And so, one of the things that you may, if you're reimagining the employee experience in your own organization, you can go to my website, greatnessmagnified.com, and right on the front page of that, it talks about the 10 phases of the employee experience. So that is yours. You can poke around at it. You can use it as a conversational strategy in your organization. So that's one thing. For those of you who want to join us on the Thankful Movement journey, our Instagram handle is at thankful with 2 L's, thankful, because we want to be full of thanks, Thankful Movement. We are sharing examples of complimenting people all over the world. Some of those videos that we captured while we were away is there. And also, you may wish to share your own version. Just add us as collaborator status when you compliment somebody in your own world, when you want to acknowledge them. We love having other people share their examples of how they compliment people. Sometimes people use the compliment cards. Other times people write their own card, they share a compliment that they received in a thank you note, or they just want to highlight great people. So those are 2 really yummy things that are happening in our world. And I love how you gave people a little bit of time to put some questions in the chat, Rebecca. We've got some really great ones. Would you like to kick it off, start with the first question?
Yeah, by all means, we definitely do that. I was also gonna quickly share a little bit about bucket list rewards, and then
Oh,
we'll
yes, please.
dive right in.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so, yeah, for everyone here who is looking for ways to celebrate all the different moments that matter, I'd love to share a little bit more about bucket list rewards and the work that we're doing. And so, we are a rewards and recognition platform that's really designed to help organizations build programs that are easy to use, well loved, and proven to deliver results. And so, if you do find yourself curious in recognition programs, I'd love for Bucket List to be on your radar. As a fun thank you for attending this conference, running a little promo here. If you hop on a quick intro call with us to learn more, I'll send you some exclusive conference swag. And so you can scan the QR code here or just hit yes on this poll and we'll follow up with you afterwards and get your meeting booked and your swag sent out.
Awesome.
And before we forget, here are the professional development credits. We have the HRCI, the SHRM, and the CPD. And I'll just leave this up as we go on into Q&A. All right, we have a ton of questions, Sarah. I guess maybe we'll rapid fire. I know people will be putting in more. First one's from Patrick here. What does it actually mean to be authentic when showing recognition?
So, Patrick, that's a great question. I want to invite you to think about it in 2 ways. Number one, if you authentically mean it and share it, that's how you know it's authentic. Sometimes we worry about how it's going to be received. And as some people believe and perceive that it's not authentic, you can't really do very much about that. But when it is true, when it is meaningful to you and that it's genuine, assume it will be genuine. Because sometimes we hold back when we're worried about that. And it's better to give it and somebody question, is it authentic, and to keep giving it than to not give it until it's perfect. That's one thing. The other thing is that when you listen for what people value, they will perceive it as genuine to them. So if you have somebody who is consistently talking about standards and quality, and you say, I really appreciate how diligent and how much you care about quality, they will perceive it as valuable to them because that's what they talk about a lot. So the things that people discuss a lot are the things that they care about. So the more you acknowledge it in the way that they value the world, particularly their work, they will perceive it as valuable. Just like if only thing we complimented people on is, let's say, kindness, because that matters to us, some people may not perceive it as genuine because that's not the most important thing to them. So those are 2 ideas, hopefully, that will land the plane. When in doubt, though, recognize it out. So, Don't worry about recognizing. Just go ahead and do it and see what happens.
On that topic of don't worry about it and just go ahead and do it, Glenda's question fits right in as well. Is it possible, Sarah, to over compliment staff in your time doing this? Has
Mm,
has I'm sure that is a question that's come up. So what are your thoughts around that?
yeah. And I get this question a lot. So thank you for that question. Most of the time, people say this is the data. It's been our experience. And anytime I was speaking for an entire municipality yesterday. So everyone in the organization was there in person or online. And I actually did ask a version of this question. Have you ever left a job? It's the opposite. Have you ever left a job because you did not feel appreciated? Every single person put their hand up. So I would invite you to flip it. Like, is it possible to compliment too much? I mean, it's possible. Is it more likely to not compliment enough? Yes. The data tells us people don't feel appreciated enough. And so I would say do it more and start to see where the right balance is there. If anything, mix up how you compliment. If you have team meetings, start a team meeting with who helped you before to let other people compliment folks. Do thank you cards, but maybe write one for another department rather than only your own team. Invite people to consider what they value in themselves rather than it just have to be you acknowledging them. So maybe get creative with who and how that recognition's happening rather than having to be concerned that it's too much. Let's make it part of the language of connection and communication. It's really legitimate. I don't want to minimize some of these questions. What I would invite us to think about is what is to gain by, even if we go a little bit too far in the other direction, we're probably going to still have more benefits than too little. Does that make sense to you, Rebecca?
Totally. And like you said, a lot of data shows that often people feel like they're not getting enough. And so I feel like overdoing it might be a myth that we should bust at one time or another.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next question from Maureen in the chat a while back. How do you acknowledge someone who doesn't want or like the recognition, sort of like public versus private? Do you have any scrumptious, juicy ideas on how to recognize those who would prefer to kind of have it in more of a private setting?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just love all of these questions. So, I actually have a recognition checklist that I invite people to use. It's again, greatnessmagnified.com underneath cool stuff, where you can have people fill it out. Because if somebody prefers more private versus public, then you're able to have that as a way to decide how you're going to execute it. Similarly, if let's say you have a bucket list as your tool that you use in your organization, it gives you options to do it private versus public. And you can get a sense pretty quickly based on people's reaction, which one they prefer, right? If they're more one-on-one versus collectively. Um, when it comes to, how to recognize in a way that's meaningful, um, s- sometimes it's a bit of experimentation. If you're in an environment where it's a highly collectivist culture. So again, I was mentioning I come from my corporate environment is mostly healthcare. And it was sometimes in those teams that were struggling, it was unsafe. In other words, you would be a target of bullying or incivility if you were kind of stood out amongst the rest. So in that case, until it was more psychologically safe, team recognition it would glue people together, and it also wouldn't put somebody kind of at risk of people talking about them behind their back or so forth. So one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is to also match how we deliver it to what's currently happening. What's the context and the culture of the team at that particular time? So, consider also not just how an individual might want to be appreciated. I would invite you to also think about the climate of the team and the organization as well. Um, I would say as long as it's not overly effusive, so, making people stand up and publicly deliver a speech, probably doing a shout out. Most of the time it's okay, even if somebody prefers it to be private. if somebody is really outstanding and everyone knows that they have, let's say they've just graduated with their master's and you want to celebrate that huge milestone, it can be delivered in a way that's something like, we all believe in growth. Our corporate value is around growth and development. And I think, somebody who's worth acknowledging in this moment is Gloria, because Gloria just finished her master's. So I'm curious to thank you, Gloria, or congratulations on completing your master's. How else have we, and what else can we do to celebrate growth and development? So, you can acknowledge somebody and then invite other people to be part of sharing, celebrating her as well as other people too. So if Gloria doesn't like to be on the spot and publicly, put on the spot, you can acknowledge her and then invite others to be part of that, acknowledging something that you've all have a shared value of. So that was a multi-pronged answer, Rebecca.
Very thorough. Thank you.
Points for thorough. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm just gonna take a look in the chat here. Aside from the questions, there are a lot of juicy and yummy comments as well. Are there any that stood out to you, Sarah, that you want to highlight with comments?
Yeah, well, one of the questions was around how will we get the slides? And thank you everyone for your patience. We tested it all, and of course, doesn't that sometimes happen? Despite all of the testing, tech did not work on our side today. So sorry about that. I think you have the resource hub, right, Rebecca? That people will be able to have the slides? Yeah,
Yes.
so visit the resource hub. And one of the things that I see in here, so Ashton, for example, saying about the disc, that's a great thing to tap into any of the tools that you use. If you use a strengths inventory, if you use disc, if you have the Holgan assessment, any of those tools does help you to give a window into what people most value, appreciate. For example, you'll have seen I shared some data in here. So data helps value and acknowledge those of you who are very analytical. For those of you who like more of the human side of the story, we had some storytelling. So what you share, how you share it, whether it be recognition, presentations, one-on-one conversations, performance reviews, any of the ways in which we engage with people that honors all of those aspects of DISC is actually a form of recognition. So sometimes we think it's just the thank you, but it's actually all the ways in which we communicate with people that can honor and acknowledge what they most want and need. Yeah, so thank you for that suggestion, Ashton. That's awesome. Leah is giving a great example of onboarding interviews. Tell me about a time they felt most recognized, appreciated. That gives you the language and understand, how to make sure that they feel valued. And what's great is when other people in the team know that that's how that person likes to be valued and appreciated and what they want to be valued for. How fantastic is that when somebody is new to their role to make sure that they feel valued by their colleagues? Because often we feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a bother, ask another question. So it's a way of honoring that individual so early on, and probably they haven't had a lot of experiences early on where somebody has asked that question, Leah, let alone then use that as a way for the team to recognize them, even though they're new. I think that's such a great start to somebody's career. Yeah.
Amazing.
Any other questions that really stand out to you, Rebecca, that you want to jump on?
I was actually eyeing the one from Catherine. I think it'd be a beautiful way to close off this first session before we head off into the next one. So Catherine asks, what are some ways to create recognition channels when the company provides very little to no budget? And so the idea around this, we get this question all the time, like recognition is great, but sometimes we just don't have, the resources to back it up. And so Sarah, I know you're really creative, you're really good at this. What are some ways that people can get started if they don't have, a formal program or if they want to do more? But yeah, what are some of your ideas on how to get started?
It's such a good question because when I speak for organizations, they are all over the map. Some, it's the first time they've ever been able to have even a group come together, that the investment was freeing up people's time. And that was it. That was the extent of that spending resources there. And others have invested in tools like Bucket List, have, send people to conferences, give people money to be able to go to conferences to, and grow and develop. So when it comes to those low lift, low investment to no investment, 95% of people say their preferred form of recognition is a thank you, costs nothing, don't need a business case. So, and giving compliments, right? Whether you write them, you encourage people to share them, you have a few of them that you have handy, giving those out. Yesterday, I was speaking for a municipality. What they did is they printed cards that have the top 5 values that have the 5 values of the organization. People would check off the values that that person epitomized, handwrite a note, and that would get sent to them. It was an investment of a few $1,000s for printing, and that was how they started it. So and they're going to experiment, see how that works. So consider where the appetite is at that particular point in time. And the benefit of recognition being leveraged to move our culture forward is that it is one of the least, if not the least expensive, high return on effort and investment. So even if you are working with, you can't afford gift cards, you can't afford trips and bonuses, guess what? That's rewards, not recognition. Rewards are the transactional reinforcement of extrinsic value. Recognition is relational currency of people's intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators. So you can combine both rewards and recognition, but know that rewards don't work without recognition. So even if you have no or very low budget, the more you curate appreciation, acknowledgments, even as simple as a text of a thank you, a verbal thank you, posting on your Slack channel, if you have Bucket List, utilizing the wall for that, use the tools you have and then go from there, because the business case will follow when the practices and the habits begin.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What a lovely way to end our first session. I'm just gonna quickly answer Glenda's question in the chat. Sorry, to clarify, Glenda, we meant our resource hub, which we'll create after the event once all the recordings and everyone sends me their slides. I'll put it all there and we'll send it out sometime next week.
Yeah.